When I started the channel, I decided I wanted to signal boost authors and books that weren't getting that much attention on BookTube. And with this book, I can wholeheartedly do that. So today I'm talking about The Gutter Prayer by Gareth Hanrahan. It was published by Orbit in 2019. This edition, I think in paperback it's the only edition so far, is 523 pages. It's a trade paperback, so a little more comfortable reading than a mass market paperback. And it's book one of a series called The Black Iron Legacy. So far, the series is 3 books. I have texted a little bit with Gareth, and he has said that there's a possibility of a 4th and a 5th book, but they're not contracted yet, so it might take a while. But it's a really good debut novel, which is kind of cool. Like I did with my previous video, I want to tell you what it's got. A dark and mysterious city. 3 friends who go to the edge and well over it for each other. Numerous strong but flawed female characters. Some seriously fucked up gods. A disease that turns people to stone. Steampunkish tech driven by magic. Horror elements. Found and biological family themes. A claustrophobic urban atmosphere. Greedy alchemists. Corpse-eating ghouls. Labyrinthine tunnels under the city. Hive-mind grave worm swarms posing as humans. The sweariest fucking badass saint in all of fantasy, and a truly epic, world-changing climax. So what's it not got? A quest, a well-defined hard magic system, and a world beyond the city that we get to see. So the whole book, other than one chapter, takes place in Guerdon. Guerdon is a dark and mysterious city, and our 3 main characters are Carrie, Spar, and Rat. And Carrie is an orphan. She is somewhat of a mysterious character to start with. She's obviously lived in other places. There are small remarks about her being on ships and being a priest or something in a temple far away. And she has come back to Guerdon only recently. She essentially only has 2 friends. Spar, who is a large, strong man. He's the son of the founder of the Thieves Guild in Guerdon, and he is a stone man, which means he has a disease which will slowly turn him to stone. Her other friend is Rat, and Rat is a ghoul. Rat is a ghoul that lives on the surface and is trying to avoid going feral, which means starting to live underground and eat corpses. The 3 of them are thieves, working for the Thieves Guild, and the story begins when a heist goes horribly wrong. And from there, we have a mystery of what exactly happened in the heist, who caused it and why, and it becomes a much larger story that goes across the city. We start getting other POV characters, like the detective, sort of, who is chasing them and trying to figure out what happened. We get Kari's cousin, who's an academic student, who is also studying exactly what's going on. And it becomes a much larger thing that starts involving politics and religion as well. The church gets involved. We get some background of the world. There is a big war going on everywhere except Guerdon, which is called the Gods' War, because the gods of all sorts of different countries manifest physically and saint people all over the world to fight for them. And it sounds like an absolutely horrific, traumatic war, which is going on everywhere except Guerdon. Guerdon is neutral because the alchemists in Guerdon earn a lot of money by selling alchemical weapons. The world is kind of steampunk. There are trains, there are guns, there are all sorts of different machines that do various things, and they're all powered by magic, which are these magic-powered machines are created by the alchemists. And a lot of what they create are horrific weapons, which they sell to everybody else in the world so they can conduct the Gods' War. That's why Guerdon is left alone, basically, and is quite wealthy. It's quite a wealthy place. So the gods in Guerdon play a role in the story, and they are called the kept gods because the priesthood, somehow, it's never really explained in this book, have managed to control the gods and keep them small in a way that they don't have too much power and they don't give anyone too much power. There's another group of gods in Guerdon who are gods from the past who are totally horrific, and someone seems to be trying to bring them back. And that's essentially the story. It's expanding from this small heist with a couple of thieves into a world-changing, truly, truly epic conclusion. There are a few different big themes covered in the God of Prayer. Obviously, found family, the three thieves, and it expands out to also include some of Kari's actual family. So we get a lot of contrast between what did your actual family do to you and what will your found family do for you. There's a lot about industrialization and ambition and greed. The alchemists are obviously a driving force behind Guerdon's neutrality, but also its prosperity. And the things that they're creating are pretty horrific. They have a lot of environmental impact. And there are a number of people who play a big role in the story who are driven by this ambition. First of all, a scientific kind of ambition to just discover things, which can end up with a lot of moral questions or moral questions that should be asked but maybe aren't. And also driven by ambition and greed, just to achieve the things they are, to get rich, to become powerful. These are large themes. Obviously, with so much God stuff in the book, religion is also a very big theme. People are being sainted in the Gods' War. Gods are actually manifesting skyscraper tall in the world, not in Guerdon, but elsewhere. And there's a fair bit of power of the church, control of the gods out of control, the way that gods get power from people, but also give power to people. So religion plays a really big role. It's a really good read. I read it, the whole thing, in one weekend. I started it on Saturday morning after breakfast and read pretty much all day. I was totally into it. I was being pulled along. It's a very fast-moving book. It reads really fast. So it makes a good change from something heavy. It's a little horrific in places. There are some very scary scenes with some very scary creatures, but it really rolls along. It's a very easy read. It's a very quick read, and it was a bit like a roller coaster. Exciting, involving. I really enjoyed it. There are, of course, some things that were not so great. I felt a lot of the time, maybe because it was packing in so much and it was moving so fast, I felt a lot of the time like things were a bit rushed. There were characters, including the main characters, where I thought I'd like to know more about them. I'd like a little more in-depth exploration of them, their backgrounds. There are a lot of little sort of throwaway lines which hint at something really interesting, but it's never really uncovered. It's never really gone into depth. Kari as a character felt kind of naive, and it didn't feel that believable because she's meant to be this world-traveled, experienced person, but she felt a little bit like a bit of an ignorant teenager at times, which was a little hard to believe. There's a big twist towards the end, and I kind of saw it coming. It seemed kind of obvious to me. I'm not sure if it's meant to be, but it didn't surprise me, and I think it was meant to. And maybe because it's a debut novel, it's Gareth's first novel, it really needs some copy editing. There are a lot of just small things, letter missing here, wrong tense of a word there. This is obviously not something I'm blaming the author for. I just think the publisher needs to take care of some better copy editing. and get the commas in the right place and get the right tenses and spelling and that kind of thing. Those things are just little speed bumps. They're not a drama. They don't make a book horrible to me, but they do pull me out a little bit. I can be totally into something and then I'm looking at a word and I'm like, what? That doesn't, and then I'm not thinking about the story anymore. It's not just flowing, just a little speed bump. The cover, just as far as the graphic design, it's pretty straightforward. Big title, smaller author name because the author's not that well known because it's his first novel. It does have a quote at the top, which is nice. So they got a blurb, groundbreaking and extraordinary Peter McLean, author of Priest of Bones, which is cool. The art, I really like the art on this. It's suggestive. I mentioned in my last video about the cover, the atmospheric to illustrative sort of scale in which I think of these illustrations. This one's kind of somewhere in between. It's obviously an illustration, but it's vague enough that it's suggestive and not really, really clearly illustrative. But we've got the three main characters on the cover, which is nice, but not in such a way that the art takes away from our own imagination. Sometimes the illustration on a cover is so clear and so specific that it's hard to imagine the character that is portrayed any other way. Here, it's vague and suggestive. You know that this is Kari and this is Rat and this is Spar, but it's not so specific that we don't get our own picture in our head as we read. And it does a really good job of capturing sort of the atmosphere of Guerden. It makes it clear from the get-go. As soon as I look at this, I know that it's a fantasy book set in a city, which a lot of covers don't manage. They don't give you a clear idea of what the hell is going to be going on. The spine just shows a part of the front cover. It's not a wraparound spine. And then the back is obviously sort of a bit of a collage that the artist has done to be for the back, but it's not one image that wraps around completely. Big blurb on the back, number of quotes. I mentioned it in my last video. One of the things I really like is up here is a number. Orbit does this. They did it also on the Jade Legacy series. They have a number, so I know that this is number 1. I don't have to go searching inside to figure that out, which is big kudos. One of the other things that I really like is that there's a credit on the back, not only for the cover artist, but also for the layout artist who put together the whole thing. So one guy does the painting, but somebody else did all of the layout, put the typography where it is. Criticisms of the front, I actually really like it. The typography is nothing exciting or special. They've done a little bit like with the R to integrate it into the image. It's only a little bit of a suggestion, but there's sort of a mist coming up over the tail or the arm of the R, which is nice. Only criticism, putting a quote, I understand why they did it, because you want to keep the typography out of the way of the interesting parts of the image. But this is so close to the edge, it really looks almost like a mistake. It could be just a little lower and it would have a little more space around it. It could breathe, or it could just be smaller. But overall, I would say this is a B+ cover, maybe an A-. The really nice thing about it, the thing I like most about it actually, is how it goes together in a series. If you put all three of them together, they really glow with these colors, this one being blue, the other one sort of yellow-orange, and the last one is glowing green, sort of. And when you put them together, the spines kind of really jump out, and they really just sit together well as a set, which is awesome. So overall, if you hadn't picked it up, I would recommend that you read this. It is a lot of fun. I don't know if urban fantasy is the right term. I hear people using that for things that are set in sort of modern day cities with magic. This is not a modern day city. It is more of a typical European-ish fantasy setting, but it's completely urban in that it's in Guerden the whole time. If you're looking for a well-defined magic system, this isn't it. But the magic that does happen, the world is definitely very magical, but the magic seems to be primarily in the control of the gods or the alchemists. So it's not a story with a character who uses magic. There isn't really any of that. But it's a really good adventure. It's a lot of fun. And I really look forward to reading the other two books in the series. So, have you read The Gutter Prayer? Are you thinking you might read The Gutter Prayer? Let me know what you think of it down in the comments. And as always, keep reading awesome books, and I'll see you next time.